fans, welcome back to your favorite podcast, the Huskies Unleashed podcast, sponsored by Innovation Federal Credit Union. We are on our second episode today, and I'm Darnell Wyke, joined by my co-host and colleague, sports information extraordinaire, Elliot Gabler. Elliot, how are you doing today?
Thank you for that. I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great. We've got a really amazing podcast today. We've got a great interview lined up with head coach of the cross country and track and field team, Jason Reindl, as well as the cross country athlete, Jaira Crosschild as well, from the Niitsitapi Kainai Blackfoot First Nation, and they're joining us to talk about the Dakota Classic, which is an annual event held by the Huskies that is in the spirit of truth and reconciliation, and we'll have more for that, so stay tuned as we get into it.
Yeah, great. It should be an exciting interview. You've learned a lot, that's for sure. And I guess we can jump right into things with recapping what's happened since our last episode.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so we'll start off with football. When we left off from our first episode, they were headed into a big homecoming match against the Calgary Dinos. They ended up coming out with a 44-40 double overtime victory in an absolute thriller.
Oh yeah, it was one of those games where you had to see it and you just had to be there to experience it. Riker Frank, one of his best games of his career, scoring 3 touchdowns and putting up over 200 yards. So yeah, big day for Riker, and it was very important to get the Huskies in the win column.
For sure, yeah. It was actually, not only was it one of his best performances, but it was one of the best rushing days in Husky program history, period. He set records for carries, yards, and touchdowns. So it was a fantastic day on the ground for them. And pretty cool to see the crowd there. You know, almost 8,800 people, one of the biggest crowds in Canada West this year. So it was quite the game, and that overtime finish, going field goal, and then winning with a walk-off touchdown, that was something.
Yeah, really, really amazing stuff, and yeah, the Huskies were definitely riding high after that game, but continuing on with football, just recently a trip to UBC did not really go their way.
Yeah, that was a tough game, a tough second half specifically. You know, they were right there headed into halftime, just a 4-point deficit, but got off to a slow start in the first half and were never really able to climb out of that hole. Ended up losing 38-24 to UBC. So they're going to sit at 1-3, headed into this week 5. But despite the loss, you know, again, we saw some great individual performances. Another one this season from Daniel Weeb, the veteran receiver, 9 catches, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he's putting up quite the season. You know, second overall in U Sports in yards and top 5 in touchdowns. So despite the tough go for us, the Husky football team, he's performing pretty well.
For sure, I think we'll get more into that during our Around the West segment, but now let's jump over to women's soccer. They had a very strong weekend 2 weeks ago, actually tying a program record with 9 goals against the University of Winnipeg, and they also went on to win 3-0, was it?
Against
Manitoba.
3-1.
3-1 against Manitoba, that's right. That's why you're sports information extraordinaire. But yeah, what kind of were your thoughts around that?
Oh yeah, it was incredible. Just a all-out domination of the Westmen. You saw 2 hat tricks that game from 2 different players, Alyssa Dagnoni and Marie Kilcher, both picking up hat tricks that game. Marie Kilcher too with 7 points, adding 4 assists on that game as well. And then to come back and then pick up the second win against Manitoba was huge. Both games coming within the division as well, so big for them in the standings. And then just this past weekend, Another big win, 6-0 versus Lethbridge. We saw two athletes with 2-goal performances in Taryn Isaac and Tia Lecox. And that brings Lecoq's total up to 5 in the season. So she's tied for second along with her teammate Dagnoni. So yeah, and then they unfortunately weren't able to get it done in Calgary. Calgary, one of the better teams in the conference, along with the Huskies at the top of that Prairie division. Unfortunately, that game opened with a great opportunity to take the lead with a penalty kick, and they just weren't able to convert. Ended up giving up a goal in the 32nd minute, and we're really seeing a tight divisional battle up in the Prairie division.
For sure, and I think, yeah, there's 3 teams that really have separated themselves from the pack. So you've got Calgary, you've got Saskatchewan, and you've got MacEwan. Of course, Saskatchewan, we've already played both teams twice, or sorry, both teams once. And I think that, you know, those next games are just going to be super important. So with Calgary, we get them coming here, I believe.
Yeah, we do.
So we get them coming here. I know from experience, the Dinos field is a lot different than Griffith Stadium's. It's a bit shorter and it has some rolling plains, so it is a bit of a home field advantage for the home team. So I think we'll be in good shape for that game. And I think, yeah, those games coming up against MacEwan and Calgary later in the season could realistically decide that division.
Absolutely, for sure. And now moving on to men's soccer. It was a tough couple weekends for them. Not exactly the results they wanted to see. Last weekend, or 2 weekends ago, on the road in BC, their only road trip out to BC of the year, they fell to Fraser Valley and UVic, 2-0 and 3-0. And then just this past weekend, they suffered a 2-0 loss to UBC, who's ranked number 2 in the country. But it really was, they really played a great game. You know, they were all over them early. Unfortunately, they just gave up 2 quick ones late in the first half and just weren't able to recover. Although they nearly did. You know, a red card late in the game gave them a man advantage, and they just weren't able to convert on some good scoring chances. But a great game against, you know, one of the best teams in the country right now.
Yeah, and I just wanted to talk about that one. Thanks for bringing it up. UBC, I think they play a style that, like, they're a tough team to beat. You know, they're one of those teams where you look at them and it's like, okay, this team may be comfortable exiting the game with a draw. Like, there's not a lot of chances that they take throughout the game, which means there's not a lot of opportunities to go on that counter attack. And yeah, they were able to kind of go on that flurry, and then against a team like that, there's not really much you can do. But yeah, I thought they really played with a lot of heart out there, and they did have a couple of good opportunities. And then, yeah, following up the day against UMBC, a bit more high-scoring affair. And I think for the Huskies, they just have to continue to try and get some more high-quality scoring chances and get the ball on the foot of some goal scorers. So
for sure, yeah. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the new goalkeeper in net, George Arnold. He made 8 saves against UBC, so he's been fantastic in net despite the lack of offensive production over the last couple of weeks. So we're hoping to see some more out of this team as they head into the back half of the season.
Certainly, and I'm sure George hopes his shots go down a little bit moving forward. So
for sure,
defense will hope to tighten up around that.
Yeah, and then just to touch on a couple things here quickly, we had some teams in preseason action as they prepare for their regular season, including men's and women's hockey. Men's hockey went 4-0 in preseason play, 9-1 over Regina, 2-1 over Manitoba, and then just this past weekend, 6-2 against Minot State, and a 7-0 shutout of Briarcrest. Some big performances in that game, especially those games, especially from forward Josh Pilar. He finished the preseason so far with 3 goals and 3 assists in just 3 games. So there's some excitement there for sure. We're looking forward to watching them play some regular season hockey. And then on the women's side, they hosted a Husky hockey tournament featuring U18 Team Sask and Lakeland. They managed to beat both of those teams 3-2 and 4-3. So they're looking strong as well as we head to the regular season. And finally, women's volleyball was in action. They were in Winnipeg taking part in the Brandon preseason tournament. They posted a 2-4 record with wins against Brandon and the Canadian Mennonite University. So they will head back to the preseason play, and they're back on the road this week. So.
Yeah, hockey teams are all looking great, and like you said, we're excited to see them get that regular season going.
For sure. Now let's, how about we head to that interview?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey Husky fans, Huskies Unleashed is brought to you by Innovation Federal Credit Union. Open a no-fee bank account and earn $50. Simply enter the promo code Husky50 when applying and save about $11 every month. Enjoy free and unlimited Interact e-transfer services. Discover a lifelong bank account that's still free when you're done school, and bank anywhere, anytime across Canada and internationally.
Before we get into our upcoming interview, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of these conversations. While Truth and Reconciliation Day is recognized nationally on September 30th, it's important to remember that reconciliation is a continued effort and an ongoing process that we should all strive to reflect on year-round. It's our hope that this interview will inspire others to continue the conversation and keep that going and reflect about the different ways in which we can all support reconciliation efforts in our communities and beyond. Hey everyone, welcome back. We're excited to be joined for our third interview with head coach of the track and field and cross country team, Jason Reindl, and cross country and track athlete, Jaira Crosschild. Welcome to the show, and how are you two doing?
I'm doing good, thanks.
Yeah, happy to be here. Exciting to be on the initial stages of the podcast and get to chat about all things Huskies.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we're excited to have you in. It's definitely a big weekend here for cross country with the Dakota Classic coming up. And yeah, on that topic, Jason, did you want to just maybe explain a bit about what the Dakota Classic is and how it's kind of evolved throughout the years?
Yeah, so this is our second iteration of the Dakota Classic. Last year, 2023, was our first event of making the conscious decision to move our home cross-country race out to the Dakota Whitecap First Nation. Over the years, there's always been a cross-country race held by the university in kind of various shapes, forms, locations. I used to run behind education many years ago, and then yeah, just a few. And then it kind of shifted to Lakewood Park for a few years, and then kind of most recently in Victoria Park, and then we shifted around our reconciliation efforts and wearing orange, and ultimately in discussions with kind of some local community members, it was the right time and opportunity to head out to Dakota, and very excited for year two.
For sure. And I think, Elliot, you had some more info there on kind of just the history of it as well.
Yeah, and I'd really like to get your perspective on it. This really started in 2018, right? And it was a visit with the cross country team to residential school survivor circle, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So maybe can you just speak on how that experience sort of launched this event and led to it?
Yeah. So if we go kind of back one more year prior to that, I got hired as the head coach here at the university in 2017, and one of my first conversations was with alumnus and community member Derek Rope, and kind of asked the question, what can our team do within the Indigenous kind of First Nations community, and how can we help support? We've had a number of athletes over the years who have been Indigenous, First Nations, Métis within our team, one of the highest percentages of a varsity program on campus, and so really asking the question of, what would be impactful, what would be positive. And that first year, we were the lead volunteers for the Aboriginal Indoor Championships. So 100 and plus Husky track and field cross-country athletes volunteered around 3 to 4 hours each to help their event. And that event was kind of 60 to 70 people, and they actually got up to about 400 a few years ago. So our involvements have really allowed that group to increase their capacity. And coming off of that, the next evolution was, what can we do further? And it was, Truth and Reconciliation Commission, September 30th in terms of, National Day Around Reconciliation. Could we wear orange? And, there was some discussion and kind of, what about our colors? What about the green? What about our Husky singlets? And, you know, we kind of went through everything, and eventually it was, no, we can wear orange. We can put a Husky logo on it. This will be really cool. But let's also ask the local survivor circle for, you know, their permission and, you know, that authentic collaborative approach to say, you know, thank you for doing this. It means a lot for you to support our group that is, you know, one can say, dwindling in numbers. You know, thankfully, you know, their group isn't growing, you know, in some respects, but it is something where, you know, that group is, you know, as age and all those things come across, and to get their blessing and support is really how it started in 2018. So
That's awesome. Yeah. And so Jaira, you came in 2019. That was your first year, the second year of really this kind of initiative around cross country starting. And so what did it mean to you to kind of see that this growing and this happening here? And did it affect your decision to come here? Did it affect your, you know, your enjoyment and your with your teammates and in your first year? And just talk about that experience coming into and being a part of this.
Yeah, it was a really, really cool experience, especially for that to be my first meet as a Huskie athlete. And I really liked what Jason said about like the team getting together with the survivors circle. I think that's just such a perfect example of reconciliation, like two people, two groups, whatever, coming together with a common goal and working together towards something big. That's just such a perfect example of reconciliation. And then the race and being part of the race is just being able to see all that work come into fruition, and being a part of it is just so special. And I really like that I don't only get to race for my team and for my school, but also for my grandparents who attended residential schools, and a lot of my relatives that went to the residential schools, and all that intergenerational trauma that's also real, and just being able to race not just for my teammates and not just for the school, but to race for them. I just felt very proud, very honored, and very excited.
That's super powerful, and I feel like it must be nice as well, just having that community support as well, and just the athletes who normally like you're competing against all the time, but to see them, you know, share in that wearing of the orange singlet must mean a lot to you as well.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a little confusing during the race because everyone's
sure.
in orange, and I don't know who's who, but yeah, it's obviously it's bigger than that. But just having everyone there, all the schools coming together wearing orange, it's so powerful, and it's whether you're watching or racing, I think everyone can attest to the fact that it's a very powerful event.
Mm-hmm. And I think kind of coming from this, we've actually seen some more initiatives now, not just at the University of Saskatchewan, but also across Canada West and across youth sports. But really, I think the Huskies cross country team was one of the first teams to kind of lead and, you know, really engage the Indigenous community around these goals.
yeah, we can definitively say we were the first team and the first institution to you know, take the initiative on something like this, and especially when we see, you know, the CFL bringing in their Indigenous logo kind of aspect this year across all teams. We see other schools bringing on their kind of local Indigenous artists to make, you know, varying jerseys for home and away events, and for, you know, our Huskie Cross Country program and our kind of 2018 alumni and 2019, you know, members, and our teams from Alberta, Calgary, Manitoba, Regina that joined us that first year, you know, that they were the first. We were the first. And, you know, whether everyone is aware that we did all that, you know, is another story, but it is something that, you know, we can hold our heads high and be very proud that, you know, if there was a first step and others decided to join us on this journey also, we're proud that they were able to see that there aren't as many roadblocks and we'll say hesitations, and it's like, you know, no, this is pretty easy to be done and super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just kind of shifting gears a little more to the actual race and race day. Just for you, you know, what are some of like the Sorry, what makes a good race?
Well, all my teammates right now, the women and their men, and everyone's looking really good right now. Everyone's looking fit, so I think that's going to make the race super exciting. Just everyone's really ready. Everyone's ready to go. And also, yeah, I'm happy for the other teams that are going to be there. The other teams, I'm sure, are looking great as well. So I think it'll be a fun competition, especially when you throw in like rolling hills, big hill, the sand, the gravel. Like it just adds for an exciting race.
Right, because for those who don't know, the Dakota Dunes is a golf course most of the time. So there's a lot of elevation changes, and I believe, if I'm remembering this right, it's 4 laps, 8 kilometers total.
Correct.
Yeah, so when you're kind of thinking about your strategy going into a race like that, like what are you kind of thinking about and what are you trying to achieve? And yeah, if you could maybe just walk us through that a bit more.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice having loops that are the same distance, because then you can kind of plan your race off of each loop. So like the first loop you want to get out hard but also relax into the race, and then the second loop you want to still feel good, and then the third loop and the fourth loop you can start pushing it a bit each lap.
Okay.
And what's also really nice about having the loops is that spectators will be able to see the whole race. They can run back and forth across the course and see all the action, and I think that'll help us too as athletes to have our family and friends and everyone supporting and cheering. I think that will help us have a good race as well.
For sure, yeah, that always makes a big difference whenever you can get the crowd involved.
Exactly.
I noticed you're wearing an Apple Watch right now. Is that allowed in the race?
It's actually a Garmin watch.
Oh, a Garmin? Okay, sorry.
I usually don't wear a watch.
Yeah.
But this race I might, but like turn it off so I don't look at it during the race, but look at my stats after to see kind of what my kilometer splits were to help plan for the future race. But I don't want to be staring at it the whole race, so I'll probably find a way to black out the screen, or I just won't wear it. We'll see. It's just another distraction sometimes.
For sure.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, Darnell, because last year being our first event, there was some uniquenesses of being in a new venue and a new location, and so we actually ran on the cart path, and so it was an out and back, so run out for 4 kilometers and then come back for 4 kilometers.
Wow.
So, and the wow wasn't too positive last year, and this is where coaches can say it was a bit of a miss. It was not as much of a positive experience for our athletes, our spectators, because they got to see the first minute, and then we waved as they went, far into the distance, and then 25 minutes later, we kind of saw them come over the hill and then came back. And so last year, combined, 20 plus minutes, 30 minutes of race time, we saw the athletes for about 4 to 5 minutes versus this year we'll be able to see them for the entire time. So even, that part, that's where as coaches in a sport that is a little looser in terms of regulations, we're excited for this year's event and being able to watch it a little more.
Yeah, we are too. And Jaira, you kind of touched on it. Some of the elements for this race that make it a little unique, just given where you're running. Is there a different approach to a race like this with some more of those elements, like the sand and the different elements that you'll be running through, and the elevation? Just with all of that, do you have a different approach to your strategy, or are there any of those that you like more than others, those elements?
So if I could paraphrase it,
translate it.
Where Camrose, our conference competition, is a lot of singular hills,
Right.
and then just a big downhill, versus this is going to be more continuous
Right.
rolling up and down. Do you have any preference in regards to the type
Okay.
of course you prefer, or?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Much appreciated.
Sorry. So in terms of this course, compared to some other courses, I think the main difference is always like the hills, the amount of hills, whether they're like rolling or if there's just one big hill. I don't mind the hills, actually. I get excited for the hills. I'm probably not as good going up the hills, but going downhill I find really, really fun. And then something else to really consider between the different courses is just what shoes you're gonna wear based on the terrain. So that's always a decision for the night before. And then it's always the same race plan though. Go out hard, settle in, and then pick up the pace and have fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think, it's been a great conversation so far. I think maybe just one more question for you is you also have two brothers who are on the team. How is that for your family, and what are you excited about? Obviously, you won't be racing like with them, but you know, you're both racing one after the other.
Yeah, it's really fun, and I feel super proud to watch my brothers run. It's always super exciting because my brothers are always going back and forth, so it's always exciting to see who's going to come out on top each race. And it's just really nice to have family, whether you're traveling to a race. It's nice to have family there, and if you're like going through something, like whether that's like injury or just a tough day, they kind of understand, and they're there for you just because they understand, because they have the same like tough days as well. So it's just, yeah, it's really nice to have them there, and yeah, it's exciting.
Definitely. Is there any sibling rivalries that go on during practice? Or?
Definitely not between me and them, because they're significantly faster than me now. But Javen and Kinley, there's probably a little bit of rivalry. They're really nice about it, and they're always so happy for each other, and they push each other. But I think deep down, they're always wanting to beat each other, which is fair. It's competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, I saw you giving a pretty good nod there. Can you give some insight on what you've seen?
Yeah, like, so as a sport where we are literally all starting at the same time, stopwatch goes, it's very much part of the, you know, the culture and the dynamic is some people are going to have good days, some people are going to have, you know, not so good days. And when you are, you know, a part of that and you're a team, and knowing that our team score is based off of, you know, hopefully everyone having good days together, you know, it's something where we need to support each other. And I'll say, you know, Jaira being in a different race than the guys, she gets to support all the time, versus with, you know, Javen and Kinley, I've seen them kind of flip-flop one way, and kind of, it's like, you know, conference last year, it was like, it went, you know, Javen, and not a good day for Kinley. And then when we got to nationals, it was the other way. And, you know, it just is the nature of the beast, but it's always exciting to see them kind of put their arms around each other, support each other, and know that, you know, however the competitive nature that exists between them, you know, they're Huskies, they're a team, and they're also Team Crosschild also.
Yeah, for sure. And I think no matter how hard you try, you can never escape the sibling rivalry.
Yeah,
I don't think it's possible. I've got one more question. I'll pose it to the both of you. We've seen, like we've been talking about today, we've seen this event really grow throughout the last 5 or so years, and others like them. But what role do you think sports like cross country can play in advancing truth and reconciliation efforts across Canada?
Sure, you want first?
Sure. I think something like sport is just so powerful. It can bring communities together, bring families and people of all different backgrounds together. And I think that's what makes sports so powerful. It's just bringing people together. So it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter your background, your experiences. You can just come together and have sport. And also lots of like opportunities to sport. Like, for example, like one of the main reasons I came to university was so I could do sport. So I think sport just brings people together and provides lots of opportunities.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, if you know, if we look at it as going back in time a little bit, there were positives in this sport framework in residential schools and day schools, and those individuals who were better at sport did have slightly better positive experiences. They got out of, you know, the school, they got to go to different communities, they got better food and better opportunity. And so in a way, sport already contributed to kind of some uplifting experiences, you know, in a negative, very negative environment. And if we take that into, you know, 2024, and we've got our, you know, calls to action, and sport fits at the 87 to 93, I believe, you know, the best part about those is that they are coast to coast. They are national. When we look at individuals in our communities who have, you know, elevated themselves and, you know, brought recognition, and the first thing they can say is, I'm from, you know, this community, I'm from this reserve, you know, I represent these people. It goes to show that, you know, this is all a part of, you know, Turtle Island in Canada, and how we are all representing this kind of, you know, unique landscape. And it is something that if sport helps us continue to move forward and acknowledge the past and grow from it and learn from it, I think that's the part that, it really provides a conduit for positive change. And, if we can just focus on that, then we can't change the past, but we can be better.
I think those are very wise words, Jason. Thanks. And yeah, I think that's probably a good place to end off the interview. Thank you both so much for coming here today. We've really enjoyed having you on.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
I will segue and kind of give a little bit of a plug. We have our community race going at 9:30 a.m. on the driving range, and it's open to everyone and anyone. So come out, have a coffee, have a donut, walk in solidarity and for reconciliation. And then we'll have the men's race starting at 11 a.m. and then the women's race at 12, and get to see some of the fastest, Huskies on campus.
Awesome. And yeah, I think we're both really excited to watch you compete, Jaira. And we're hoping to cheer you on and hoping you do really awesome on the weekend.
Thanks so much. Looking forward to it.
Hey, Husky fans. The Huskies Unleashed podcast is brought to you by Innovation Federal Credit Union. Now offering no essay scholarships. Need help with education costs minus the hassle of writing that dreaded scholarship essay? Well, you're in luck. Enter for a chance to win one of 4 monthly $1,000 scholarship draws or our $10,000 scholarship draw. Just head on over to innovationcu.ca and do the application from there.
Now let's take a look at what's been happening around Canada West with the Around the West segment.
Let's do it, and we'll kick things off with the only sport that has a kickoff, and that is football. So, looking at the standings, we have Manitoba Bisons, my former team, 4-0, top of the standings, and from there we have a bit of a log jam with the rest of the teams, so lots of room to move up. There's 3 teams tied at 2-2, Alberta, UBC, and Regina. And then near the bottom of the pack is Saskatchewan and Calgary at both just 1 win for both those teams. But I mean, as you could see, it could completely change after this week. So
for sure, yeah, we got another 4 games to go, and who knows what'll happen. And one thing we should point out is, despite the record, the Huskies do currently lead the conference in points for. So when that offense is moving the ball, we just we need to see some stops, I guess.
Yeah, and I think hopefully Coach will get to that this week.
All right, now let's jump over to men's hockey, or men's soccer.
Yeah, so men's soccer, the standings over there, we've got Pacific Division, UBC, the, I believe, lone undefeated team remaining across the Canada West. They're out in front, 5-0-2. Then you got Victoria, UFV, they also have 5 wins, a couple more games played for both of them. Trinity Western and UBC Okanagan, UNBC Thompson Rivers, they're kind of trailing there. So that 4th spot in that division is also up for grabs, and you want to do the Prairie side?
For sure, yeah. Yeah, so on the Prairie, we got about 3 teams up at the top, kind of in a battle for that first place in Alberta, Calgary, and Mount Royal. 6-1-1, 5-1-3, and 4-1-4 there. So again, that 4th spot there is completely up for grabs with 3 teams each at 2 wins apiece. Lethbridge is winning that tie break with 5 draws right now. So the potential is there for the Huskies to get back into this thing with a few games left in the schedule, and we'll see how the rest of the season shakes out.
Yeah, I think they can definitely make a push for sure. And that brings us to the last sport currently in action right now, which is women's soccer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as similarly to the men's division, only undefeated team at the top of their division, UBC 6-0 in the top of the Pacific. And then we see a bit of a bunch after that. Some Victoria, Trinity Western, UBCO, really all the way down to Mount Royal, Thompson Rivers, and UFV are all still in it. So that's a tight division if you look away from the top spot. And then on the other side, again, super tight with the Huskies in the mix over here in the Prairie Division. Calgary, MacEwan, and Saskatchewan all within a couple points of each other. Calgary leading that at 5-1, and then both the Huskies and the Griffins tied at 4-1-1. So it'll be interesting to see who shakes out at the top in that division, and it's a really important year because you win that division, you get to host the Final Four, and we all know the benefits of home court or home field advantage in sports. For sure, yeah, you can't overstate that enough, and I think from our side of things, I know the Huskies would be thrilled to do that, and yeah, they're going to have their work cut out for them the rest of the way. Now we're going to take you in to the Husky happenings. Yeah, we'll set up what's coming up in the next couple weeks. We got some big games going and some teams opening their season, so let's get into it. Yeah. Leading things off, this Friday, football's back home. We got a 3-game homestand coming up with a bye week mixed in there, and a big game against Alberta. And another one of those teams that you only play once, so having the tiebreaker is a huge deal. And I'm sure they're looking for some revenge as well after falling to the Golden Bears 3 times last year. So it should be a great game, though. For sure, and I know we had that preseason matchup. You know, what can you really take from preseason? But I think it should give them some confidence heading into that game. Yeah, no doubt. And then on Saturday, we have, as you all know by now, the Dakota Classic taking place at the Dakota Dunes Resort, our premier cross country event. So the women get started at noon, just after the men who race at 11 o'clock there. Right, first race at 11, second race at 12. Yeah, did a little reverse there. Also this weekend we got a big, at home we got a big men's basketball preseason tournament. The Ryan and Jane Graham shootouts back. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 6 matches. We got the Carleton Ravens, UBC Thunderbirds, and MacEwan Griffins in town. So some really great programs, and it'll be exciting to get to watch some basketball again. For sure, yeah. I think it's always nice whenever you get that cross-conference play. I think, just contrasting styles, you get to see some teams that you wouldn't normally see with Carleton. Mm-hmm. So yeah, everyone, if you've got the opportunity, there's going to be lots of games starting on Thursday. So yeah, check it out. Yeah, and especially with a consistent U Sports contender in Carleton. They've won their fair share of national championships, so it'll be a good test for every team playing this weekend. Mm-hmm. And then let's shift things back onto the pitch. We got a big divisional weekend for soccer here. Both of our teams are on the road, both in Edmonton, both taking on Alberta and MacEwan. Just reversed Saturday, Sunday games. So for the women, great chance to break that tie with MacEwan, get another game up on Alberta, and for the men, two really great chances to start to get back into this playoff race. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so 2 teams in completely different scenarios. For women's soccer, I think at least a draw is kind of the result they want against MacEwan. And then for men's soccer, I think they are really going to be wanting a win, at least one win, 1 draw coming out of this weekend. Yeah, for sure. And now we kind of look ahead to next week. We got another big weekend ahead on the weekend of October 3rd, 4th, 5th. The biggest thing probably is our hockey teams return to action. Both men's and women's open their season on Friday, taking on the Regina Cougars. Men are at home first on Friday. Women are at home on Saturday. So a couple of Prairie action. For sure, yeah. Some big games. It'll be exciting, and looking forward to watching some hockey live again. Yeah, I think everyone in Saskatchewan, everyone treats their hockey pretty seriously here. So I think the fans will be out and they'll be loud and ready to get back. No doubt, and there's some exciting teams as well. We've seen some really exciting additions to the men's team, and some exciting recruits on the women's side. So looking forward to watching them all out at MVP. Awesome. All right, and then just to kind of wrap things up with football and soccer. Football's back home taking on undefeated Manitoba, and soccer's home for their only doubleheader of the season on Saturday, October 5th. So you can catch both teams in action. Great stuff. So yeah, you know what to do. Go out, buy those tickets, and come support your Huskies. All right, thanks. This has been the second episode of Huskies Unleashed, presented by Innovation Federal Credit Union. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.